What is the proposed mechanism for stress causing oxidative stress and thus aging? Well, what stress does, it actually pushes up certain pathways that increase certain chemical compounds that do increase oxidative stress in the body. And so, it actually increases a lot of cytokines, and cytokines do have an effect of damaging cell membranes. Also, a number of some of the oxidative byproducts can actually be increased in the mitochondria, which can also have a bit of an effect there as well. So this sort of general increase in oxidative stress can be produced by, stress alone. Excess cortisol can actually, be another factor which can increase this sort of catabolic or damaging effect, to the body. So these are sort of the sort of mechanisms that we understand in terms of, without going into complex biochemistry. If you want that explanation, I'll email it to you. And then you can email me back what you're confused about, and then I'll explain it to you. But otherwise, when it comes to, what is the upregulation of certain types of cytokines, which will increase some damaging effect to tissue, is really the underlying thing. Now, that also can be produced by certain viruses, certain compounds like, environmental mold, and certain types of toxicity chemicals, as they can cause oxidative stress on the body. So there's a lot of things that can actually cause, but stress is another one of them, one of the major ones. What I've found is taurine really calms one down. And most people that do take taurine, and taurine is a proxy for animal foods. It's, you don't find in plants. It's primarily animal based. And we just take slightly more as a supplement. And it's not because if we were ancestral from birth, we wouldn't require it. But if you take a look at an ancestral person, how do they live? They don't have a boss. They live out in the whoop whoop land. They work amongst themselves, are interdependent, and one supports the other. So they don't have a very stressful life. We have a whole lot of hustle and bustle, a financial system that we're tied to, and that increases our stress levels are way above our normal range. And this is why I say, for us, there is a benefit in biohacking, using a bit more, using blue blocking and stuff like that, lowering the cortisol level at night, using taurine to lower it back to normal physiological ranges and amplify melatonin to relax us, and so we can get better sleep, because that also has a beneficial effect in reducing oxidative stress. And also, more melatonin will heal a lot of that damage in the mitochondria in particular. So what we want to do is we want to learn how to relax, how to do breathing exercises, chill out, talk to ourselves, and remind ourselves things could be a hell of a lot worse. And write things down. I have a tendency, when I have problems, I write them down. You can't solve a problem that you don't have on paper. Once you have it on paper, then you can say, well, how can I solve that problem? What can I do to mitigate those risks or threats or whatever? And by writing it down, see, what happens is, in your mind, you're getting negative effects in your environment. We live in a more complex world, not a simple world like a Maasai or a Hadza, in a complex world. And so we've got a lot of inputs that can stress our bodies, a lot of stress points. And so as a consequence, by learning to identify things and learning to manage things, we can overcome these stresses. Most people what happens is, their stresses overwhelm them over time because they never deal with them. They never confront them. And so they tend to escalate. The things that you need to do is write down what they are, identify them, work out strategies how to resolve them. And what happens is, because you're getting all these inputs coming in, negative inputs from your environment, you look at the media, crazy stuff that are happening around us and stuff like that, and these, about uncertainty about the future, and they do generate more stresses. But by looking at the sort of stuff and writing it down and recording it, then what we can do is we can actually say, okay, I can deal with these things. And also what happens is, subconsciously, you don't have these irritating things in the back of your mind. You've brought them to your conscious side, you've identified them, and now you're basically working out some strategies how to resolve them. And you're also realistic about what you can resolve and what you can't resolve, and what you can actually sort of mitigate, or let's say take steps that will avoid that being too damaging to you, the stuff. So these are the sort of strategies. And then what you're doing is, this subconscious stress that's coming from your immediate environment can be lowered, the threshold. That reduces oxidative stress in your body. And then you could also, as Tracy reminds me about taurine and increasing GABA ray, which calms down the body. Yeah, you can add that as well, as you may want to take a bit extra, and that will help calm you down even further and allow you to cruise through the day in a more calm manner and cope much better. So understanding the things around you, plus using a species appropriate diet with some taurine supplementation, can actually improve your coping mechanisms and all that. And that's really what people need to do. The sun is really important as well. I can't stress it enough. Getting out in the sun is so, even in winter, getting out in an environment, can be so distressing. And, we shouldn't neglect. We are creatures that evolved in a natural environment. So, we shouldn't neglect. It has a lot of powerful abilities. I sometimes go through walk, even in winter, through parks. It's so calming. So, think of strategies that can actually reduce. It's fine to say, oh, what are the mechanisms and all that. These are the mechanisms. I could actually go through, do a 30-minute video discussing the mechanisms that cause oxidative stress, and show exactly which cytokines and how much they do, and how they affect the integrity of the cell membrane when they get released, and how damaging they can do and what degree. But fine. You learn a bit of biochemistry, but ultimately, most people don't want to learn that. They want to learn how to cope with stress. And really, ultimately, coping with stress is learning to both mentally managing it and taking dietary and other lifestyle steps to mitigate a lot of those deleterious effects. That's what we really should be focusing on in that regard. Unless you want to do a biochemistry and physiology, qualifications, it'll give you a lot of knowledge, but it won't help anyone, So for me, it was more learning how these things work, and then what sort of compounds and what sort of mental approaches I can use to mitigate those things.